Hi and good afternoon everyone. Welcome to Supergrads. My name is Abhyansh Sir and I am here with the remaining three poems from your Flamingo. हम शुरू की जो दो poems थी वो कर चुके थे. My Mother at 66 and Keeping Quiet. Now today we'll have a discussion around poems like A Thing of Beauty, Roadside Stand and Aunt Jennifer Tigers. And with that हमारा Flamingo का जो भी revision होना था वो खत्म हो जाएगा. आगे फिर हमारा डिस्कशन विस्टास बुक्स के अराउंड होगा. सो लेट्स बिगिन स्टूडेंट्स. हर चैप्टर के ऊपर आई हैव समथिंग टू टेल अबाउट द ऑथर. आई हैव अ डिटेल्ड समरी फॉर ईच पोएम. I have the important figures of speech, important poetic devices that are used in these poems, and every poem is followed by 10 MCQs. So I hope everyone is ready for today's session. Let's begin, guys. Let's begin with the first poem, A Thing of Beauty, by the very famous John Keats. By the very famous John Keats. Now we'll have just a little glance at what his writing style had been throughout his career. और उसके बाद इस poem की summary देखते हैं. What is this poem all about? So John Keats was a major romantic poet. His poetry celebrates beauty, imagination, and nature as a source of eternal joy and spiritual nourishment. So he's someone who sees beauty in all the surrounding things, all the natural things that are there. Despite a short life marked by suffering, his work remains timeless. So if you look at his, I think he lived for 26 years, a very short life. But his work remains timeless because इस short life में ही जितना ज़्यादा impact create किया John Keats ने, I think for that he'll be remembered forever. So let's quickly move to the summary of the poem, students. Now, what does this poem tell us? A Thing of Beauty, Joy Forever. John Keats, a romantic poet, strongly believed beauty is permanent source of joy and spiritual strength. Permanent, forever word लिखा हुआ है ना poem में, so forever would somehow get us close to permanent as well. In A Thing of Beauty, he argues beautiful things do not lose their charm with time. Instead, their impact deepens and it becomes more meaningful. So he says, with time, the beauty of anything, it just enhances. And not the other way around. जैसे लोगों को लगता है कि यार time के साथ beauty कम हो जाती है. He was one of those people who believed that with time, the beauty enhances. Beauty, according to Keats, has the power to uplift the human soul and offer comfort amid the harsh realities of life. So he emphasizes कि beauty से आप बाकी सारी चीजों को भूल जाओगे and the harsh realities that we face in our day-to-day lives. Keats observes that human life is full of sorrow, disappointment, and suffering. Feelings of despair, that is hopelessness, lack of hope, despair, lack of hope, these are similar things, students. And negative thoughts constantly try to overwhelm the human spirit. However, beautiful things act as a healing force that binds us to life. They help us rise above misery and create a sense of peace and positivity. Beauty gives us emotional shelter, like a shady bower that protects us from the scorching troubles of life. So he says, with all the troubles that we suffer, that we have in our day-to-day life, it is beauty that keeps us going, that keeps us motivated for a longer period of time. Now, in the next half, he says, the poet then gives examples of of what constitutes beauty. So, हमने स्टार्टिंग में पढ़ा था he was a romantic poet and अपने आसपास की चीजों में he used to observe a lot of beauty. So natural things का बहुत सारा यहाँ पे discussion होगा. He includes elements of nature, as I said, such as the sun, the moon, the trees, the daffodils, clear streams of water and forest shades. These natural beauties refresh our mind and provide relief from the exhaustion of daily life, he says. Along with nature, Keats also include noble human qualities like heroic stories, great deeds that inspire humanity and elevate moral values. So John Keats was someone who used to observe beauty in all the natural things around him, and of course, not his definition of beauty was not just limited to the natural things. He also called beauty whenever he saw some good things being done by humans, act of empathy, act of good moral values. That is also something that categorizes under his definition of beauty. Now, in the concluding paragraph, Keats finally compares beauty to an immortal drink that flows continuously from heaven, nourishing the human soul. Thus, beauty becomes a divine force that keeps humanity spiritually alive. Through his poem, John Keats conveys an optimistic message that as long as beauty exists, life remains meaningful despite the different type of sufferings that we face. So that is all what this poem is all about. Hi beta, Mayank. I hope you're doing well. So that is all about the poet and the summary that followed. Now let's look closely to the poetic devices that were used in this poem. And poetic devices like alliteration, noble natures, cooling covert. So in alliteration, there is repetition of consonant sound at the beginning of the sentence. यहाँ पे आप repetition देख रहे हो, NNN, CNC. Metaphor, a bower quiet for us. So a bower is compared as something being very quiet. So there's direct comparison. There is no use of as or like in the sentence. So this is again metaphor. Imagery, visual images of nature and beauty. Enjambment, continuation of sense across lines. Personification, beauty as a life-giving force. So beauty, which is an abstract idea, is given human attributes, it's given human qualities. So that is where personification comes into play. And transferred epithet, gloomy days. The days are not gloomy. You were sad on those days, right? So that is exactly what transferred epithet is. So in this poem, A Thing of Beauty, Joy Forever, we have discussed a little bit about the poet. I think we have discussed the summary in detail for this poem. We have also looked at the poetic devices. It's time we move to 10 MCQs, students. Let's see if you can answer these questions. Just give me a second. Here it is. Central idea of poem. What is the central idea of this poem? Central idea of this poem, students. Anyone? Central idea is, it's not about wealth, it's not about sorrow, it's about eternal joy of beauty. A thing of beauty, joy forever. So forever and eternal, these words are similar in meaning. So C must be the correct answer for your first question. C must be the correct answer for your first question. Right? Yes, well done, Nandini. Here is your second question. A thing of beauty, joy forever means what? Beauty fades, beauty causes pain, beauty gives permanent joy, or beauty is temporary. What is the meaning of this phrase? A thing of beauty is a joy forever. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. So this phrase, I think beauty fades, beauty causes pain, beauty is temporary. These are some of the things that goes against the poem. Poet में तो इसके कुछ opposite बात लिखी. Poem में लिखा है that beauty is forever. So beauty gives permanent joy. C must be the correct answer to this question, students. C must be the correct answer to this question. Here is our question number 3. What does dark spirits refer to? Dark spirits का मतलब क्या है? Dark spirit. The poet says that beauty helps us to get over, to get rid of dark spirits. So is he Is he actually talking about the dark spirits? No, he's not. He is talking about the sad thoughts, the despondence, the lack of hope that people face, the suffering that people face. इन्हीं सारी चीजों को collectively the poet describes them as dark spirits. So sad thoughts should be the correct answer here. Beauty helps human to do what? To gain wealth, to forgive duty, to overcome despair, or to escape death. Beauty helps human to do what? To gain wealth, to forget their duty, overcome despair. So as I said, despair situation is hopelessness. And yes, beauty helps us overcome helplessness that we face in the society, in our surroundings. So yes, C must be the correct answer for this question. Moving on, cooling covert refers to what? Dark forest, place of comfort, cold wind, or shade of fear. So cooling covert is a place of comfort as described in the poem. Next up we have which literary device is used in flowery band. Now flowery band में of course this is not simile because there is no use of as or like in these two words. Similarly, there is no alliteration because there is no repetition of words, and metaphor bhi nahi hai, so it is imagery. It is taking us, the poet wants us to imagine a scenario in our head. So that is what this is all about. D must be the correct answer to this question, students. Here is the next one. The immortal drink is taken from where? He says beauty is like an immortal drink that flows from the heaven. That is what he says. So heaven, which is given in option A, would be the correct answer. Keat belongs to which poetic movement? Victorian, Romantic, Modern, or Metaphysical? So when we had a discussion about the poet, I said उसमें सबसे पहली line ही लिखी थी that he was from the Romantic era. So B must be the correct answer for this question. The poem suggests beauty is dash. Beauty is material, beauty is destructive, beauty is life sustaining, or beauty is illusory. So the poet, or should I say the entire poem, revolves around this one word, and that is beauty. And beauty is permanent, beauty is forever, beauty is not something that gets vanished. So beauty is life sustaining. The poet suggests that beauty is life sustaining. Hi Sidhu, hi beta, how are you? And tone of the passage: melancholic, optimistic, satirical, or angry. Melancholic is something that causes sadness, कोई बुरी खबर चल रही हो, ऐसा कुछ, which is of course not the case here. The poem is highly optimistic because it says beauty is everything. Beauty is something that helps us get rid of all the pain and suffering that we are facing in the modern day. So I think that was all from this poem. John Keats का poem था, A Thing of Beauty, Joy Forever. So we discussed something about the author. We had a discussion around the summary, the poetic devices, and we had 10 MCQs. So I'm expecting कि ये poem के questions आपके board pre-board exams में आते हैं, तो आपको अब ये trouble नहीं लगेगी. Next up, we move to another very good poem, I would say one of those poems that I personally like, and that is A Roadside Stand by Robert Frost. Robert Frost was an American poet known for his portrayal of rural life, social injustice, and human struggles through simple language and deep symbolism. So, पोएम पढ़ने से पहले, देखने से पहले ये चीज समझ में आ गई कि यार कौन सा लिटरेरी पोएटिक डिवाइस इसमें यूज होगा. तो पोएटिक डिवाइस हियर वुड बी सिंबलिज्म एंड अदर्स एज वेल. ठीक है, ठीक है. सो दैट वाज जस्ट अबाउट हु वाज रॉबर्ट फ्रॉस्ट एंड कैसा उनका स्टाइल था. लेट्स क्विकली मूव टू द समरी of this poem. So the poem as the title suggests, a roadside stand. A roadside stand, generally when we move from one city to the other city and when we move to the suburban areas, we see a lot of thelas, a lot of temporary shops. और उसी शॉप का डिस्क्रिप्शन शॉपर के क्या शॉपकीपर के क्या एक्सपेक्टेशंस हैं सिटी वाले लोगों से, ये सारा डिस्कशन. सो इट्स क्वाइट एन इमोशनल पोएम. And again, it talks about the struggles that these people face. Okay. So, a roadside stand represents a poignant picture of rural poverty. Poignant is something that is touchy, something that is emotional. Touchy, emotional. So, Robert Frost presents an emotional picture of the rural poverty and economic inequality in a rapidly modernizing world. The world that is rapidly modernizing, उसमें भी inequality, poverty, poor state. The poem focuses on poor villages who set up small roadside stand in the hope that passing city dwellers will stop and buy their farm produce. For these villages, even a small amount of money would bring relief from their constant struggle for survival. So Robert Frost throws light on the problems that are faced by these villagers who have established these roadside stands वो लगाते हैं, and they expect the people that are moving from one city to the other कि वो रुकें, वहां से चीजें खरीदें, and of course they can get some money. For okay, however, the reality is harsh and disappointing. That is something that these small poor people expected, but reality is not the same. जैसा वो चाह रहे वैसा नहीं होता है. The city people traveling in shiny, expensive cars speed past the stand without stopping. They are irritated by the poorly built stand, which they see as an eyesore spoiling the beauty of the countryside. Now these people in their expensive cars, उन्हें वो stand देखकर बड़ा एक छी वाला फीलिंग आता है कि यार इतना ब्यूटीफुल प्लेस है और ये शैबी से जो स्टैंड्स दिख रहे हैं ये और ब्यूटी को स्पॉइल कर रहे हैं. दैट इज व्हाट दे बिलीव. द विलेजर्स होप आर क्रश्ड रिपीटेडली एज द अर्बन ट्रैवलर्स रिमेन इनडिफरेंट टू देयर सफरिंग. अर्बन ट्रैवलर्स आर शोइंग नो फीलिंग्स टू देयर सफरिंग. सो अर्बन ट्रैवलर्स आर इनडिफरेंट, शोइंग नो फीलिंग्स. They are indifferent. They are not emotional, they are not showing any feelings. Then Frost strongly criticizes selfishness and insensitivity of the urban society. Robert Frost, जो of course roadside stand के writer हैं, poet हैं, he doesn't feel well कि यार ये urban लोग यहाँ के villagers की या country side के लोगों की प्रॉब्लम्स को नहीं समझ रहे हैं और दे आर नॉट शोइंग एनी इमोशन, एनी फीलिंग टुवर्ड्स देम. He points out that city people are more concerned about comfort, aesthetics, and speed than human compassion. Human compassion. So जब summary start हुआ था वहाँ पे एक word लिखा था ना, poignant. Robert Frost, through his works, he had this characteristic of touching your heart, of evoking that sense of feeling for the suffering of these poor people. Even when so-called social reformers claim to help the poor, their actions often worsen the villagers' condition. These greedy good doers and beneficent beasts of prey. Greedy good doers. They are pretending, these social reformers, these NGOs, they are pretending that they want to help these people, but उनका hidden motive है. They beast of prey plan to relocate these the villages to society, depriving them of their land, independence, and dignity in the name of development. The poet is deeply disturbed by this injustice. The poet is deeply disturbed by this injustice. The suffering of the rural poor troubles him even in his sleep, leading to a sense of helplessness and emotional unrest. Frost longs for a sudden end of the village's misery, not out of cruelty, but out of compassion, as their prolonged suffering pains him deeply. The poem thus becomes a powerful social critique, exposing the hollowness of modern progress and highlighting the widening gap between the rich and the poor. रॉबर्ट फ्रॉस्ट को नींद में भी, सपने में भी सिर्फ ये लग रहा था कि यार ये जो गलत हो रहा है, कैसे मैं इन पुअर विलेजर्स की सफरिंग को, इनकी मिजरी को एंड कर सकूं. Of course, he did not have the money to do that, but he had his pen to make sure कि यार जो भी इनकी प्रॉब्लम्स है उसको मैं हाईलाइट कर सकूं. So that is exactly what this poem is about, a little poignant poem. Let's see the kind of poetic devices that were used here. Let's see the kind of poetic devices that were used. So irony, because development of these areas brings misery to villagers. So that is exactly what irony is. Two contrasting things, एक तरफ development है, एक तरफ misery है. Symbolism, roadside stand symbolizes rural poverty. Symbolizes rural poverty. Alliteration, नहीं, यहाँ पे alliteration नहीं है. Personification, polished traffic passed. So polished traffic is not a human thing, but passing is not a human, is not a thing that we should associate with traffic, but हमने किया, हमने उसे personify किया. Imagery of rural scenes and metaphor, city people as indifferent forces. So that is the metaphor that was used here, followed by 10 questions, students. 10 MCQ type questions from our second poem for today, that is a roadside stand. इसके बाद एक पोएम हमारी और बच रही है, that is Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. So the roadside stand symbolizes, what does it symbolize, students? क्या बोलते हो? मयंक, गेमर भाई, शुभ डांगी, क्या कहते हो? What does the roadside stand symbolize? क्या symbolize कर रहा है roadside stand? It symbolizes, does it symbolize modernization? Does it symbolize rural poverty, tourism, freedom? क्या symbolize करता है students? It symbolizes rural poverty. Well done. किस बच्चे ने आंसर किया है? गेमर भाई. Correct answer. Correct answer. Here is the next question. City people are portrayed as what? What has been discussed here about the city people? ठीक है मयंक, correct answer. City people, he says, are they kind, are they helpful, are they generous, or are they indifferent? Indifferent people are people who have no feelings for the sufferings of others. So passage में poem में लिखा हुआ था that they are indifferent, they are not showing any feeling, any emotion, they are not concerned about the sufferings of these people. So C must be the correct answer here. Moving to the next one, greedy good doers refer to who? Refer to the politicians, businessmen, social reformers, or villagers. Poem में लिखा हुआ था, these so-called good doers, they do not mitigate the suffering, rather they alleviate, they aggravate the problems of these villagers. Greedy good doers refers to social reformers. Has anyone answered that? Greedy good doers are referred to social reformers. What do villagers expect from city people? advice, sympathy, money, purchases. This can be a little tricky question, students. Next question. So the villagers do not expect money. Of course, they expect purchases. Because this by default means कि अगर वो city dwellers, the people who are moving, the people who are traveling from one city to the other city, if they make purchases, so villagers का उसमें फायदा ही है. Purchase ही कर लेंगे तो उनको money, sympathy सब मिल जाएगा. So D must be the correct answer for this question. The tone of the poem is what? Is it comic? Is it critical? Is it romantic or is it celebratory? So Robert Frost is very critical about the attitude that these city people have towards these villagers and roadside stand. Right? So B must be the correct answer. The tone here is critical. Next question. What disturbs the poet most? रॉबर्ट फ्रॉस्ट को रात में नींद क्यों नहीं आ रही है? क्यों नहीं आ रही है? क्या प्रॉब्लम है? इज इट द ट्रैफिक? क्या रीजन है कि रॉबर्ट फ्रॉस्ट को रात में नींद नहीं आ रही है? व्हाट इज द रीजन बिहाइंड दैट? इट इज बिकॉज ऑफ द सफरिंग ऑफ दीज रूरल पीपल. इट्स नॉट अबाउट द ट्रैफिक नॉइस, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. इट इज बिकॉज ऑफ the suffering of these rural people. Polished traffic, what does it suggest? Does it suggest clean roads, rich city people, speed, technology? What does it suggest? Polished traffic. Polished traffic का क्या context है? So polished traffic is a phrase that he has used for the rich city people that travel through that place without stopping at any of these shops, any of these roadside stands. Frost criticizes who? किसको क्रिटिसाइज कर रहे हैं? फार्मर्स को, नेचर को, कैपिटलिज्म को, या अर्बन एपैथी को? Who does he criticize? It's not farmers, it's not nature. He criticizes urban apathy. Apathy is having no feelings. So the urbanization that is taking place is not taking into consideration the problems that the villagers will face. So उसका concern यही है कि ठीक है, capitalization करो, development करो, but do not ignore the suffering of these villagers. The villagers are dash, hopeful yet helpless, violent, educated, greedy. Violent, educated, greedy, hopeful yet helpless. So there is nothing in this poem that suggests that these villagers are violent. Villagers ऐसा नहीं कर रहे हैं कि उन गाड़ी वालों को रोक के लूट रहे हो या मार रहे हो. They are not doing that. They are not educated. Had they been educated, वो अपने लिए कुछ अर्निंग का और सोर्स देखते हैं. They are not greedy as well. They are hopeful, yet they are helpless. They're just sitting in hope that some of these these expensive cars would stop and buy some things. So A must be the correct answer for this MCQ. The poem reflects what? Romanticism, social realism, fantasy, or patriotism? What does the poem reflect, students? Poem किस चीज को reflect कर रहे हैं? So poem reflects Robert Frost के I think majority of the works or of Robert Frost reflect social realism. Society में जो चल रहा है, problems जो चल रही हैं, that is what he talks about. That brings us to the third and final poem of not just today's session but from your book, that is Flamingo. और ये खत्म होने के बाद next week से विस्टास स्टार्ट करेंगे. विस्टास के चैप्टर्स के अराउंड थोड़ा डिस्कशन करेंगे. सो द थर्ड पोएम हियर इज ऑन जेनिफर्स टाइगर्स written by Adrian Rich. Adrian Rich was a feminist poet who explored women's oppression, identity and resistance through powerful symbolism. So again there is use of symbolism in this poem. Aunt Jennifer's Tiger में Aunt Jennifer is referred to a lady जो अपनी लाइफ से काफी परेशान है एंड वो वीव कर रही है, कुछ टाइगर्स के शेप बना रही है, बट वो टाइगर्स उसके अंदर की प्रॉब्लम्स, अंदर के फियर, अंदर के स्ट्रेंथ, हर चीज को रिफ्लेक्ट कर रहे हैं. एंड पोएम में ऐसे छोटे छोटे इंस्टेंसेस हैं जहाँ पे शी सीज हर रिंग एंड अपनी वेडिंग रिंग को भी वो एक केज की तरह आंट जेनिफर समझती है कि यार बस मैं इस पिंजड़े में बंद सी हो गई हूँ. दैट इज व्हाट शी बिलीव्स. Right? So let's look at the summary for this poem. Aunt Jennifer's Tigers is the deeply symbolic poem that highlights the oppression of women in a male-dominated society. The poem revolves around Aunt Jennifer, a woman who finds expression and escape through her art, yes, through embroidery. And when she's doing her embroidery, वो वहाँ पे tigers को बना रही है. The tigers she stitches are bold, fearless and confident, moving freely in forest, unafraid of human beings. So that is her suppressed emotion that she wishes to express through her art, that was embroidery. These tigers stand in sharp contrast. Now there is sharp contrast. Suppressed emotion, एक मैंने word use किया, suppressed emotion. So Aunt Jennifer खुद शायद फ्रीली सोसाइटी में नहीं घूम पा रही है, बट हर वर्क एक्सप्रेसेस कॉन्ट्रास्ट. अपने वर्क के थ्रू अपनी इनर फीलिंग्स, सप्रेस्ड इमोशन को वो एक्सप्रेस करती हैं. इन रियलिटी शी इज वीक, नर्वस एंड टेरिफाइड. हर हैंड्स ट्रेम्बल, ठीक है, ट्रेम्बल कर रहे हैं. व्हेन शी वर्क्स, वेटेड डाउन नॉट जस्ट बाय फिजिकल हैवीनेस ऑफ द वेडिंग रिंग but by the emotional burden of her marriage. The wedding band symbolizes the oppressive nature of patriarchal marriage, which has robbed her confidence, freedom and individuality. So wedding ring किस चीज को symbolize करती है? That because of her marriage she has lost her confidence, freedom and individuality. Aunt Jennifer lives in constant fear, dominated by her husband and constrained by social expectation. She lacks the courage to assert herself openly. Openly अपनी बात नहीं बता पा रही है. So she is doing that through her art, that was embroidery. She lacks the courage to assert herself and thus her resistance remains confined in her art. Through embroidery, she creates a world that reflects her suppressed desires, suppressed emotions for strength, freedom and independence. Even death does not liberate Aunt Jennifer from fear, as the memory of her ordeals. Ordeal is pain and suffering. Ordeals is pain and suffering continues to haunt her. However, the tiger she has created will continue to live on the embroidered panels, fearless and proud. Through this contrast, Edwin Rich emphasizes that art can outlive suffering, And though women may be silenced, their aspirations and struggles find expressions through creativity. The poem delivers a strong feminist message about gender inequality and silent resistance that Aunt Jennifer conveys through her art. Silent resistance. I think summary में clarity है. Let's look at the poetic devices that we have. So yes, there was symbolism. Tigers were representing freedom. Ring was representing oppression. Contrast: weak women versus strong tiger. Although her personality, Aunt Jennifer, was very weak and nervous, but her work expresses contrast. Work में वो tigers को बना रही. Tigers are freely roaming and doing whatever they wish to do. Alliteration, prancing, proud. It's about the tigers, so repetition of P. Imagery, visual embroidery, scenes, and metaphor. Wedding band is used as a metaphor to express the burden that she's carrying, the burden of her marriage. So these were the poetic devices used here. And now we have some questions. We have 10 MCQs. Enough discussion, guys. Let's try to answer these 10 MCQs that we have. In 10 MCQs का game over करते हैं. And this would be the last session on poems. Next जो भी sessions होंगे that will be based on chapters of vistas. Here we go, students. Tigers symbolize. What do tigers symbolize in this poem? Tigers किस चीज को symbolize कर रहे हैं? Tigers in this poem symbolize. What do they symbolize, students? Power and freedom. Well done. Power and freedom, which is given in option B, must be the correct answer for this question. Next question. Aunt Jennifer is afraid of what? She's afraid of tigers. She's afraid of nature. She's afraid of patriarchy or society. I think there are two options that can be easily eliminated, but there would be a hard, you will have a tough time in choosing between the two options that are left. She's afraid of what? She's afraid of patriarchy or society. Think about the broader term and not the shorter one. So broader term यहाँ पे society है और society के अंदर patriarchy है, and that is what she's afraid of. So that was our question 2, students. Next question. The wedding band symbolizes what? Love, responsibility, bondage or wealth. Wedding band किस चीज को, wedding band, wedding ring किस चीज को symbolize कर रहे हैं? So wedding band क्या symbolize करता है? Wedding band symbolizes her bondage, that bondage of her marriage. No, it's not responsibility. Responsibility पॉजिटिव नेगेटिव दोनों सेंस में हो सकती थी. वेडिंग रिंग सिर्फ ये एक्सप्रेस कर रही है दैट शी इज ऑप्रेस्ड, शी इज बॉन्डेड in this situation of marriage. So it should be bondage. The tigers are described as what? Timid, weak, lazy or fearless. Tigers are described as timid, weak, fearless or lazy. So the tigers are described as fearless because they are prancing proud, they are roaming freely, they are fearless. टाइगर्स जो एम्ब्रॉयडरी में आर्ट जेनिफर ने बनाए थे, आर्ट जेनिफर ने जो क्रिएट किए थे. Aunt Jennifer hands are dash, confident, steady, shaking or strong. So if I remember correctly, अभी कुछ देर पहले summary में मैंने बताया था, what are her hands doing? Her hands are shaking because she is a very nervous lady. She is not very confident. So embroidery करते time भी her hands are shaking. So C must be the correct answer. The poem is mainly about what? Is it about art? Is it about nature? Is it about feminism? Or is it about the wildlife? किसके बारे में है poem? किसके बारे में poem? So the poem is mainly about feminism. It talks about the oppression that Aunt Jennifer was facing. After Aunt Jennifer's death, what will happen? Tigers disappear, tigers remain alive, fear ends, art is destroyed. After her death, what would happen? Tigers will remain alive because tigers are representing fearlessness. Ringed with ordeals. Ringed with ordeals, ringed with pain and suffering. So marriage troubles would be the correct answer for this question, students. Tone of this poem is what? Hopeful and critical, humorous, romantic, neutral. Chalo, tone related question answer kar do. Let's try and answer the question related to tone. The tone of this poem is critical towards the society, and the word hopeful comes from Aunt Jennifer's attitude that one day she wishes to be free, she wishes to gain back her confidence. So A must be the correct answer for this question. Tone of the poem is hopeful and critical. Andrea Enrich's poetry focuses mainly on what? Does it focus on mythology, feminist issues, nature or war? जल्दी से आपस में चैट मत करो बेटा. This is something that will help you in your board and pre-board exams. So can I expect a correct answer for this question of Adrian Ritz's poetry focuses mainly on which issues? Is it about mythology, feminist issues, nature or war? What does it focus on? So it focuses on feminist issue, Aunt Jennifer being the protagonist in this poem, students. And Bacha Party, that brings us to the conclusion of today's session. So Flamingo के जितने भी chapters, poems, सब कुछ cover हो चुका है. I'll be back in the next week with your chapters from Vistas. Thank you so much. Bye bye.